Broadcasting from Now Media Network's headquarters in Houston, this is Be Productive, hosted by business strategist and productivity expert Clara Capano. Join us to discuss the most critical issues affecting our businesses with a fresh, practical, and objective discussion on the first bilingual media network in the United States. Be Productive starts right now.
Welcome to Be Productive. I am your host, Clara Capano, and this is the show where we talk with industry experts who are going to share their insights, tools, and strategies with you so that you can be more productive. You know, we have a great show, and I'm really excited about some of the conversations that we're going to have today. You see, so many of us in business are focused on getting to the finish line. Well, the only way we can get to the finish line is to make sure that we are coming out of the gate and we are at that starting line with a strategy and purpose. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about today is how we can optimize our growth. We're going to be looking at how we can invest our dollars so that we can grow with strategy. We are going to be talking about inventory. Because, you know, we want to make sure what is that safe spot between too much and too little so we can make sure that we are serving our clients and delivering the goods. We are going to talk about our raving fans. You know, our raving fans are going to help us take care of that bottom line. So how are we opening them up and sharing those messages? And then lastly, what are we doing to make sure that we are protecting, that we are designing, and really looking at the products that we are putting out there. So stay tuned. We're going to be covering lots of gold, and you're going to want to make sure that you are here and you are present because these messages are going to help you be productive. Stay tuned because we'll be back for our conversations. Welcome back to Be Productive. I'm your host, Clara Capano. You know, when we are business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs, there are two things that we want. We want growth and we want profit. There is a strategy behind both of these. So to help us talk about how we can grow and also enhance our profits as we do it, I have my friend Mark Wetzig joining us. So Mark, welcome to the show. You are an expert in this area of business growth. So we are going to have an awesome conversation about this. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Good to be here.
I am doing well. And I know you're calling in from snowy Colorado and I'm here in sunny Arizona. So we got both sides covered for us. So let's talk about this. You know, talk to me a little bit about how businesses can start to optimize their financial management as they support the growth of their company, because growth is good, but it can also be overwhelming. And we want to make sure that we're growing with purpose.
I would say the two most important things, and number one is know your numbers. Everybody tells you that. Everybody from the gurus to usually your accountants, but also have a really good bookkeeper, somebody who's managing and overseeing your books on more of a daily basis. It is one thing to have and to get into regular financial statements, but there's a lot of work that goes behind the financial statement that needs to be tracked. And that's when then we start to get into things like KPIs, the key performance indicators. That really comes into know your numbers. One of the things that I see a lot of companies get into as they start growing is that they start getting a lot of KPIs, and therefore they don't become key anymore. You kind of get lost in the details. Most companies up to probably that 5 million level can really measure the health and growth of their business with about 6 to 10 specific KPIs. And the value of a KPI is that it's a leading indicator of what is now going to reflect on a subsequent financial statement. So say, for example, if you're going to get, you're really focusing on conversion rates, and you've got an offer out there and you're working on conversion rates and you're trying to get your sales staff to convert the more opportunities that come through the door or online. In tracking that, that will not show up for maybe a month or two, or maybe even a quarter, substantially on the financial statements. So you need to have that key performance indicator that you can really look up at any moment in time, but then also track, what is that doing? Is, how is that affecting the business? So it's more of a checking on the pulse of the business. Financial statements are typically snapshots, but you want to have somebody, and that's where the bookkeeper comes in, and somebody who's overseeing your numbers, being able to see how things are going, and if things are off, identifying them and letting the proper decision makers be aware of what's going on, and checking into it. So it's really kind of a monitoring the pulse of your business.
Yeah, we got to monitor that pulse, because sometimes it's racing and sometimes it's flatline. So we want to make sure, again, that we're keeping an eye on it. Right. Another thing that we talk about with growth is oftentimes when you grow, that also means that there could be a correlation to overhead, because you might have to bring on new technology. You might have to bring on new staff, new team members. So what are some effective strategies that business owners and leaders can look to as they are both growing their profit, but controlling their overhead?
Well, you mentioned technology, and that's often a route that most people go down. One of the big challenges you have with that is, what are you looking for? What is it? What do you want it to do for you? And be really clear about that. A lot of people will go in and buy technology for the sake of buying technology. And that can sometimes be a problem, because you're trying to, fit that technology within the puzzle pieces of your business. And that can sometimes become very time consuming and frustrating for everybody. So one of the things that I work with people on is, when you are going out and looking to source something like technology, for example, what specifically, and get very specific about it. What do you want it to do within the parameters of your business? How do you want it to report? Say 6 months from now, if you bring that technology in, what do you want it to look like? And what do you want it to be able to do? I run across a lot of companies that have grandfathered in one technology on the other. They bought a website here, they bought a CRM there, they bought a data tracking system here, and they've tried to piece this thing together, and it starts to become a really time-consuming process trying to even it all out. So really being clear about what you want to begin with, that helps. But getting back to controlling the overhead, it's just really understand, and that goes back to, what do you want this to do? Do you want this to monitor and control production output, employee output, the sales conversion process? Because it's not just the activity, but it's the production within that activity. Because you have to be careful about what you're measuring and why.
Exactly.
And so that really comes down to, knowing what you want before you go get it.
Yeah. And, I've done that before, where, again, oh, this looks great, I know it's going to help me. And then I spend all the money, and then it sits on the shelf. So, a great reminder that, you can talk about the technology, but let's also make sure that we have the right strategies behind it to implement it, right, so that it's actually doing it. So again, really taking that time to, again, really think it out more strategically. Now, as a growth coach, you work with a lot of people on looking at all these different pieces and making sure that they're fitting together the right way. Earlier in the conversation, you talked about, looking at things on a regular basis, such as the bottom line. This can come under the umbrella of the word forecasting. As leaders, as business owners, we have to make decisions, and we want to make smart, well thought out decisions. What is the important role that forecasting plays in making quality, smart decisions for a business owner and leader?
Especially with smaller companies, you need to be really clear about where your area of focus is. Again, is it on marketing and getting leads into your pipeline? Is it on a conversion, converting those leads? Is it on your production? So your forecasting really needs to focus on your area of focus. So when you're doing forecasting, first of all, they need to be realistic, and they should have input from people that are actually responsible for delivering. Having forecasting being very remote from daily activities can usually only cause problems. So a lot of guessing goes on. So we used a term back in my corporate days of calling it a roll up. But what is your roll up? If you have a certain number out there that you're trying to attain for your sales, don't just have a number, but have a roll up as to, well, what makes up that number? What were the assumptions that are made? Because again, with forecasting, you have to make assumptions, but be very deliberate about what those assumptions are so that you can measure. And if you make them, you can confirm that was a good one. And if you miss them, understand why. Again, it's a control mechanism. It's the levers, because ultimately financial forecasting, like everything in finance, is scorekeeping. You're really trying to keep score on how you're doing versus how you think that you should be doing. And again, that comes back to, it gets better over time. Mm-hmm. But forecasting needs to be very realistic. You obviously have to balance that with stretch goals, but that's really the important thing. And this can go from everything from budgeting to resource allocation to sales conversions. It factors into every component of your business. Not just the strict bottom line finances of end of month figures.
Absolutely. Mark, what you're doing is so powerful. As a strategist and coach myself, I know the value of having somebody on your side, somebody that's helping you to look at things at that higher level as you do as a growth coach for people. So, I have coaches myself, and I've been doing this for a while. You've been doing this for a long time. I know that you can really help some business owners who are looking to, again, grow the right way. So where is the best place for our viewers to find you if they want to learn more about how you can help them grow strategically?
A couple of ways to reach me. First of all, my website is www.reignitegrowthcoach.com. My email address is markw@reignitegrowthcoach.com. My cell and text number is 303-921-3440. And that's the best way to reach me. And one thing I will say is that, and we've talked about this before, there are a lot of free resources out there to give you guidance and ideas on things that you should be looking at and considering. It's, for me, I really like to be that objective third, second set of eyes and kind of a third party to really, be able to provide that input to somebody on, are they going down the right path, or what the trade-offs might be on a particular decision.
Perfect. Well, Mark, thank you so much. As always, such great information. And for those of you out there that are watching, I hope you took a lot of notes, because again, it's great to grow. It's great to make profits, but we want to make sure that we're doing it in a smart, sustainable, and a way that we can keep a pulse point on it to make sure that it continues. So stay tuned. We'll be right back for more Be Productive. Welcome back to Be Productive. I'm your host, Clara Capano, and this is where we are talking about all things to help us work at the highest optimal level of productivity as possible. We all know that watching the numbers is a big part of us staying and maintaining productivity as well as success in our business. Today, what we're talking about is inventory management, because so many of us have goods and services, and we've got to keep an eye on those things to make sure we don't have too many and we don't have too few. So to help us with the conversation, I have my friend Nora from Nora's Books here to help us. So Nora, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Clara. Happy to be here with you.
Yes, I know that this is something that is, it's one of those guessing games, but it doesn't have to be a guessing game because there is a system to it. So talk to us a little bit as a bookkeeper and somebody that has been in this realm for well over 20 years. Talk to us about how bookkeeping plays an important role in the efficiency of inventory management.
So basically, we want to think of bookkeeping as this puzzle to bring all your business together in numbers. So in order to have an efficient bookkeeping, you need to have all these puzzles together so it makes sense. Now, inventory, like you want to count the inventory in hand, that cannot happen, but you have to enter those numbers. You have to communicate with the person who's doing your bookkeeping, whether it's someone doing it in-house or you are hiring someone outsource. So you need to communicate those numbers, because only you or someone, like it depends on where you are, you keeping this inventory. This is where you have to get the numbers from, and you want to make sure like to enter those, and you want to have control over that, because you want to make sure you are preventing loss, and loss can come from waste or theft. So you want to make sure to monitor that, and you only can do that if you're doing a good bookkeeping and have good control system. You can control your cost, manage your cost, make sure you are not paying more so you can keep your profits high. So this is, you cannot do this without really having a good bookkeeping system, which includes an inventory. And your bookkeeper or accountant cannot do that without your help, because that's not her job to count. Someone else has to do it. Like, unless this is something like someone in-house and actually doing that for you. But even though, like, you should have like layers of control. So do not rely on one person. So a long time ago, I used to work with a company, a huge company. They have books as an inventory. Every year, at the end, we have a system where we go count in hand all the accounting departments, and we seek help for other departments. And then we have a system where 2 people at least count. And then we enter that into the system. And then, like, if there's a difference, then that's actually trigger a 3rd count, because we are human beings and we can make mistake. Wow. So you want to make sure you keep control on that, and everything has to be entered into your bookkeeping system, so you know if you are profitable or not.
Oh my gosh. And you talk about the idea of these puzzle pieces, and I love that analogy, because we've got to think about everything fitting together. So, as a business owner, you're going to have your system for tracking inventory. You're going to have your system for watching your numbers. But what are some of the benefits about having a system that can actually integrate these 2 pieces together?
You must have that, because like you said, the puzzle has to come together. If you don't have everything, you cannot think of everything independent from the other. How can you make like business decision if you do that? You have to think for overall picture to make sure you make the right decision. You have to get accurate financial statements, and systems as good as the data you enter in them. If you enter wrong data, you're going to get wrong reporting. And if you get wrong reporting, you're going to destroy your business somehow, some way or another.
Absolutely. Again, you got to have those systems in place, because you got to keep an eye on it. And again, not just you have to, as the, organizer and as the leader, but again, you want to be communicating with your bookkeeper, with your CPA, so that you have all eyes on it. We talk about real-time bookkeeping, and this, I would imagine, is a very critical part of all of this, because again, you've got to make sure that you're managing this. So it's the turnover of the inventory, but also, again, the cost benefit analysis, because like you said, you've got to really these things can ebb and flow. So how can real-time bookkeeping really enhance and support that inventory turnover and also the reduction of costs?
So it will definitely help you avoid stacking inventory that is not necessary, so you run out of cash flow. It's gonna help you know, like, when inventory goes low, like now it's time to order. So you can get into all these measurements to make sure your business is running well. You don't have a shortage, but at the same time, you don't have like overflow of inventory, and you have no cash flow to grow your business, to pay your employees. You want to make sure you have enough storage and not too much storage, because if you order so much, if you're not watching those numbers, then maybe you think you need a bigger storage area, so you go waste some more money with that. So you want to make sure you do not waste space. You do not want to waste inventory. You do not want to also waste human resources, right? You don't want to hire people for something that you don't have to hire people for. So you don't want to get those false indications. So it's really important to have that bookkeeping system in order to help you manage the inventory and like have a great health for your financial health for your business.
Yeah. And I would imagine, even though you're looking at the real time, by collecting this data, it's going to help you again with the forecasting, especially if your goods and services could be seasonal, because there could be certain things that you sell more of at certain times. And then also it's going to help you gauge what are some of your more popular or less popular items. So again, it'll help you with the forecasting as well.
Definitely. You're absolutely right. Forecasting, and every business, if you want to be successful, you want to make sure you do forecasting, and you need those data for inventory for historic data. And then you want to look at the future. So you want to make sure you're looking both back and ahead of time.
Absolutely. We got to watch the numbers as business owners, as leaders, as entrepreneurs. We've got to watch the numbers, because if we run out of the money, we're going to be in a problem. So again, we've got to make sure that we're helping this healthy inventory in everything that we're doing. So again, Nora, you've been doing this for many years, and I know that there are people out there that need help with this. They might just want to ask some questions. They may want to hire you. So where's the best place for people to connect with you, find you, and reach out to you?
Sure. They can go to my website, norasbooks.com/contact. They can book a call. And in my website, they can find the access to the links to all my social media. I do a lot of YouTube. I recently started a podcast on Apple called Nora Speaks. So they can go and find me there, book a call if they need help with anything.
I love it. I love seeing your growth with yourself. I love that you are doing that, because you have so much knowledge. And I know, just from a personal perspective, talking about these things can be so overwhelming for people, especially entrepreneurs, where this is not in necessarily our wheelhouse. So being able to have someone that not only knows the information, but that you can trust is key. So Nora, thanks again for being here. And for all of you, make sure you are getting your systems together. Make sure you are keeping an eye on your bottom line, your inventory, your forecasting, and more importantly, make sure that you have a trusted advisor guiding you along the way. Stay tuned, because we'll be right back for more Be Productive. Hello, and welcome back to Be Productive. I'm your host, Clara Capano. And one of the things we want to talk about today is making sure that we are protected. There are so many things coming at us from the outside. There are a lot of cyber attacks coming in. And one of the things that could really zap our ability to stay productive is if we open ourselves out to some of these items. So to talk about how we can better protect ourselves in some of the systems and documents, I have my friend Greg Schaffer joining us. So Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you are an expert in this area of cybersecurity. I know you've been doing this for over 20 years. Let's talk about when we're putting our documents and when we're putting our programs together, what would you say are some of the key elements that we really need to pay attention to?
So you definitely need to start with your information security policy, your program document. It would be a overall arching governance document. It sort of sets the tone for your information security program. What I mean by that is, first of all, the why. Why are you doing this? Well, you're doing it because you want to protect your information. You want to make sure you identify where your information is. You want to make sure that through this document that you're clearly discussing the roles and responsibilities of everyone within the organization with regards to information security. And sometimes people think, well, isn't that just an IT issue? And no, it really isn't. Everybody has some sort of measure of responsibility with regards to protecting information. And also to report when they think that they might have come across an issue where there was an information potential breach or some sort of a security issue. And so the policy itself, then you have this overall arching umbrella document, and then you've got many subcomponents within. I'll just spend a couple of moments going through what those several of them are. First of all is your information classification and handling. So you need to understand how to protect your information based on its risk. Obviously, like some things like public information, like a website, for example, well, that by design is public. So you don't need to keep it confidential. That would be completely against what it is that you're trying to do. But other information you want to classify as confidential, like if you're keeping credit card numbers or something like that. And then you have to understand how to handle it, because there are security implications and there's privacy implications. And just briefly, the difference between the two is that security controls who has access to the information. Privacy has directions on how you can use the information. So just because, like, say, for example, you work in a hospital, you're not allowed to go in and look at somebody's medical records unless you have a business reason for it. And then some of the other elements, who can access and who has the right to access information. There's a risk management component of this, because information security is all about risk management. Part of that would be vendor management as well, too. And so when I talk about vendor and risk management, it's basically understanding, well, what risk does being involved with this vendor have to our organization? Because if we have a vendor that we talk about having, we'll talk about this probably a little bit later, but if we have a vendor that has our secure information, our confidential information, it doesn't remove our responsibility. We have to understand vulnerability management. That's another part of the program and the document. How are we managing our IT vulnerabilities within and external to our network? We have to make sure that folks are aware. Training is very important. So that's usually part of this program document, laying out a training program so that you're taking the appropriate courses, if you will, on a regular basis, and understanding. Knowing how to recover from an incident, because more likely than not, incidents will happen. And so incident management, maintaining continuity of business operations, and recovering from a disaster as far as IT, those processes, those guidelines are built into the information security. And then finally, like change management, how you're doing changes within the organization, and also how you're complying with whatever particular rules, regulations, standards that your business is beholden to. And you take all those together, wrap them up in a policy, and that becomes the foundation of every security program, to run the security program and then grow the security program.
And, people might wonder, why are we talking about stuff like this on a show called Be Productive? But you hit the nail on the head with the idea that if we don't have these things in place, something inevitably will go awry. We
Exactly.
have to be prepared for it. Now, I also know that, even though you have these systems and you have this umbrella, no organization is one size fits all. So I would imagine that it's also important that we start to tailor some of these policies to an individual company. What are some of the things that, you can do, or that you can suggest people do to help them tailor it to their environment?
Well, this is actually a hugely significant problem within the industry, because a lot of what we have within the industry, not only with policies, but with a lot of the approaches to information security and cybersecurity, are geared towards larger businesses. And the small and the mid-sized businesses are kind of left out a little bit, and it's a little bit more difficult for them to understand and for them to get the resources on how to do that. But the process really is the same, whether it's a large organization or a small organization. And the first step is to define, and this is going to sound a little complicated, so I'll make it as simple as possible, to define a framework that you want to align your program to. So there's a very simple one out there called, for example, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. It's got 100 requirements that you need to meet, and it has guidance on how to meet those requirements. And then you may not meet all of those. So you look at all the requirements and you say, okay, we do this, but we don't do that. In that case, what you end up doing is you have a gap assessment. And then from that gap assessment, you risk assess those gaps. And then at that point in time, now you start talking about policy. So you don't want to take policies that are made for larger organizations. They'll have different gaps than you do. You want to start by understanding where your gaps are and where your processes are, what you need to govern, the things that you're doing right as well too, and also make sure that they're aligned to that desired framework. Now, there's you can use a template, but generally speaking, you want to write the policy to address two main points. Just to review, you want to make sure it aligns with the framework that you have chosen for your organization to follow, because you can't do information security unless you have some sort of a guiding map of some sort. And that's what a framework is. And then you need to make sure that you're meeting those framework requirements and also meeting the gaps that you have identified.
And, all of this, I know it sounds very complex to someone like me who's not in the industry. And this is why you really want to work with an expert such as yourself and your company, Viciso, because it is so many layers. And I would imagine that there are some plug and play programs out there, but there's probably some risks. And this is why, as a company leader, a business owner, you really want to bring somebody in to help them tailor it. What would you say are some of the biggest risks that a company can open themselves up to if they just use a generic system rather than tailoring it to themselves?
Well, the first risk is one of lack of awareness that there can be risks involved. And I know that sounds almost repetitive, but it's becoming even more of a case. It used to be, if you go back a few years, you could go out on the internet and you could do a search on the internet for show me an information security policy, show me an acceptable use policy, show me something along those lines. And you would get back some examples of templates, and then you could take them and adjust them to your format. People do that a lot. And frequently what we would do as practitioners is that we would highlight certain areas of like a person's or a company's information security policy or one of their sub policies, look for that wording on the internet, and then we can find out that, hey, you just took a template and you basically just downloaded and just implemented it without really researching if you're doing some of the items in there. But now, because of ChatGPT, it's even easier to create these templates, and they're not usually of the same variety, meaning that they're not like a standard template that's out there. Each time you ask ChatGPT or another generative AI system to create a policy, it'll come up with something a little bit different. But the risks of doing so is that you're going to have a policy that's saying that you're doing things, and if you're not doing those items, then if you'll excuse the pun, you're giving yourself a false sense of security. And it could get to be worse, because if you find yourself in an audit situation, let's just say you're going for your first SOC 2 audit, or you have to be audited for PCI reasons. And again, you say that you're doing A, B, and C. An audit basically takes what you say you're doing and verifies that you're doing it. If you're not doing it, then you're not going to pass the audit. But all of that really obfuscates the biggest risk of taking policies off the net and just implementing them without really paying attention to what's in there, is that if you're not doing what you need to be doing, then inherently you're going to be more insecure, if you will, with your information security posture, and therefore you're going to be more apt to be exposed for a potential vulnerability exploit.
And that's what that's the message we want, is don't leave yourself vulnerable. Don't leave yourself exposed. Things are going to happen, but the more that you can do to protect yourself, because again, as small business owners, even as large corporation owners, we have a responsibility, and, we need to make sure we put so much time and effort into this. Now, Greg, as I mentioned, you've been doing this for countless years. And I know that in being an expert, one of the other things that you do is you share information on your podcast. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So the Virtual CISO Moment is a podcast that's geared towards small and mid-sized businesses. And we pick up topics there that are relevant to those businesses. Again, some of the things that we just talked about that are not necessarily as important for larger businesses. Every week, or sometimes even more frequently, I will interview a security professional in the field. The discussions are usually between 25 to 30 minutes. And you can find the podcast on any of your podcast platforms. It's also on YouTube and also on LinkedIn on my page every
Excellent.
time it comes out. So.
Well, thank you so much. Again, these are things we need to be aware of, and I appreciate you sort of bringing it down to more of an understandable, message for all of us who are watching. So for all of you, again, make sure that you are protecting yourself, make sure you are protecting your interests in your business, because when things happen, you want to make sure that you can address them and get back to being productive. So don't go away. We'll be right back with more after this quick break. Welcome back to Be Productive. I'm your host, Clara Capano. As a leader and as a business owner, one of the most important things that we need to pay attention to is the feedback that we are getting from the people that we work with. In a lot of the trainings and speaking that I do, I talk about two guiding principles that we need to pay attention to. One of them is showing is better than telling. And the second one is it matters who says it. We want to make sure that we are creating not just happy clients, but raving fans, because we want our story and the level of quality and service that we are delivering to our clients. We want our clients to be singing that from the rooftops, because it is so much more impactful when they are telling our story, more so than what we are. So to talk about the impact of client testimonials and client feedback, I have my friend from Turner Insurance and Policies, Chase Traffica. I always want to intersperse your names there. Chase Traffica here to share with us. So Chase, welcome to the show.
Absolutely, Claire. It's great to be here.
So, you have been giving us a wealth of knowledge on the ideas of compliance and really understanding, looking ahead and planning. But you know what? We would be remiss if we aren't talking about the power of relationships in everything that we do in building a long-term, successful and sustainable legacy in the companies that we are running. So when we are talking about taking care of our clients, testimonials are key. So talk to us a little bit about how client testimonials can really impact the story and also in sharing the quality that you've been able to use in your company.
Absolutely. So as we go through speaking to prospective clients, the number one question we get is, who do you work with around me, or who do you work with in the Southeast, or who do you work with in the Midwest? And I think that social proof aspect is so huge. If they know a company that you work with and they have the ability to understand that that is a viable, successful company and they work with you, that will do a lot for your business. I think as industries evolve, there's all kinds of outlets you can go for risk management, insurance, surety, and knowing that they know somebody that works with you and is happy with your product, I think becomes a mainstay in the process of your business.
Absolutely. Because, your company has been around for almost 100 years. So, obviously you have that tried and true. But at the end of the day, people still like to work by referral. They like to have that level of comfort and security. And I think that's something that these client testimonials can provide. Can you think of a specific case study or example where maybe you were able to provide a testimonial to another potential customer and it really helped to seal the deal and solidify the relationship?
Sure. So we work with multiple large general contractors throughout the nation that do business overseas. We have one client that builds embassies overseas. And as we were going through the prospecting and onboarding process for a prospective client, they had a job come up right outside the Dominican Republic. They couldn't find a broker that was comfortable handling this on the surety side or the insurance side. So we were able to hook them up with our current client that did overseas work. He explained how we handled the insurance and everything that went with it with the overseas work, really made our client understand and feel comfortable with coming on board, knowing we could handle such a vast project. But I don't believe he would have come on board so quickly if there wasn't that social proof and that testimonial from one of our current clients.
I love it. Again, it matters who says it. So I always love when I see the testimonials, and I love just even as an individual going to my clients to ask them, because I believe in the value that I deliver. And I think when companies, go to their clients and, ask them to provide that feedback, it shows some transparency. It shows that you believe in yourself because you know that you deliver value. When you're looking at these client testimonials and feedback, what do you think this is a message? What do you think these testimonials say about your company and, the level of service and value they deliver?
Yeah, Claire, I think, as we all know, dealing with whether it be a used car salesman, all the way up into an insurance professional, sometimes words don't mean as much as actions mean. That's when kind of those testimonials come into place, because I can sit all day and talk to them blue in the face about how excited I am about what my company does. When you can get a third party say, hey, this is the truth and this is what they did for us. We have a process where each year we have an annual client review. That process is getting them to rate us on our service, the integrity we've shown, and the business acumen we've shown towards that client. That is a great way, one, for us to fix what we need to fix, but also get them to tell us what we're doing correctly. And you would be surprised how many of your clients in business are excited to share with other members of their industry what you're doing for them, because they're getting to share something they did right in their selection. And that's a sense of pride for them. So I think always being courageous enough to ask how you're doing is a very important part in this process.
It is. And sometimes we learn, we can learn so much by not even something we're doing wrong, but maybe something that we can improve. And at the end of the day, that's really what we want. So, Chase, talk to us a little bit about, your company, because I know your company's been around for a very long time. Tell us where, one, we can find you. And then also, just from your perspective, what is one of the things that you love most about your company and that you really want people to know about Turner that maybe is a little bit different than some of the other competition out there?
Absolutely. So you can find us at turnerfirst.com. And I think something you'll find as you go through our website, but especially if you ever talk to someone in our company, our tenure of employee is quite long. We have multiple people that have been with us for over 30 years. So, a third of a century, because they believe in kind of our mission. They believe in our process, and they believe what we're bringing to the table is something that can help businesses. I know when we talk about insurance, a lot of times it's a price here, a quote there, and that's not how we run our business. We run our business as a consulting agency where we try to find the best fit for the client, and we have programs that can really turn their insurance program from a liability into an asset, and that's what we focus on.
Fantastic. Well, Chase, thanks so much for sharing time with us today. I love everything that you're talking about. And for those of you that are following, again, have the courage. Just like Chase said, have the courage to ask for feedback, because showing these results is so much better than just telling people. And also remember, it matters who says it. So if you want to level up in your ability to be productive and serve at a higher level, make sure you are not only nurturing your relationships, but let's make sure that we are listening to the feedback from our customers as well. Stay tuned. We'll be right back for more Be Productive. Welcome back. I really loved the conversations we have today. And I think because so many of these things are lessons that I have worked on and I have needed to learn over the course of building my career. The idea of optimizing our dollars. It has been so easy to just listen to things and every idea sounds great and you want to just jump on the bandwagon. But, we've got to really be more strategic in where we're investing. Looking at our clients. Who are those raving fans? And how can we leverage the messages, not use them, but leverage them to open up other doors for us. And again, looking at, do we have the right inventory? Do we have the right systems in place? So many times we are so focused on the end results, but we're not thinking about the starting point. And today's message was all about how a strong start is going to lead you to a strong finish. So I hope you found value in today's show. We appreciate you here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Clara Capano, and let's keep being productive.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.